Okay. All right. I got to tell you guys, I met this man years ago when I was doing my show in the Mighty 1090 in San Diego. And I'll tell you this, there's no doubt he's one of the most well-respected men, and he was a former Charger doctor. And you talk about people getting opinions, and you go to Dr. David Chao, and he is the pro football doc. And boy, I'll tell you what, he's built that brand up. I can't tell you from my friends like Bert Grossman and all the people that just swear by him. There is no question about it. We're so proud to reconnect here with our friend, and I can't wait to talk with him here. So let's bring him up. Dr. David Chao, he joins us now. Doc, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? It's been a little while.
Absolutely, man. I love what you're doing. I love the whole branding on what you're going with here. So obviously one of the reasons that I brought you in here was I wanted to get your opinion on Landon Dickerson. Now, the reports have just come out here now where I've had this surgery. I went in, Dr. Chao, when I was with the Buccaneers. They shaved my meniscus because there was some clicking. I was able to play that Saturday, and the meniscus is the thing that's underneath here. It's kind of like the stuff there. And they told me that as long as it's not a bad tear, there's a chance that you'll be able to go out and play the rest of the year. And I did. I played that Saturday. Can you give me your takeaway on what you're hearing so far and what people are saying about Landon Dickerson?
Well, I'm always glad to deliver good news. And so far, this seems on the good side. So yesterday, when my Twitter handle, X handle went off and the Sports Injury Central staff was texting me all the information, the video, there seemed to be a lot of doom and gloom based on Lane Johnson's reaction and players' reactions. And this is why I always say, judge the injury, don't judge the reaction to the injury. Now, there wasn't a lot of video. There was one distance grainy video where I couldn't really tell what exactly happened, but I took that as good news. And on my Twitter handle, I said, I can't be sure. Let's hope there's no dreaded ACL type thing. I know he's had a history of that. But the fact that you couldn't tell for sure was a good sign. And also a soft sign, and once again, don't judge the reaction to the injury, was that he was carted off in the front seat, not laying down, knee or leg locked. So last night's cautious optimism has kind of turned out. It's said to be minor meniscus injury, minor procedure, arthroscopy. Let's hope that arthroscopy is what you just said, a meniscectomy or a trim, not a meniscus repair done through a scope. The meniscus repair puts the season at risk. The meniscus trim, as you say, leaves the door open, I'll say, for an early season return. Whether that's week 1 or not is a different question. And look, Dan, you've been through a lot and lots of injuries. And back in the day, here's a bullet, go bite on it. Let's go.
Right.
It's the health and safety era now. No one's calling these players soft, but they are more aware of long-term and doing what's right for their bodies, etc.
Dr. Chao, when they say best case scenario, doesn't this come down to the style of rehab? I mean, I'll give you a story because I also do a show in Tampa with, a radio station there, and they misdiagnosed Tristan Wirfs. You had him in a knee brace, and then all of a sudden on July 8th, he goes in, and now he's on the PUP list. So, they were hoping without surgery in that case here. So when they say best case scenario, what does that mean to you? Because to me, it's kind of like a convoluted message. When somebody says best case scenario, that means all the rehab has to go well. That means the injury has to come along. When you hear people phrasing it like that, what's that mean?
Well, in some ways, you have to think about it this way, in football terms, right? It terms that people can understand instead of using medical terminology. In the best case scenario, your football drive ends up with points, right? And whether it's field goals or a touchdown. In the best case scenario, you end up making the kick, whether it's the extra point or the field goal, you make the kick. But if you're injured, 3 things have to go right. 1, the injury has to be amenable to healing. The procedure or surgery has to be good, and the rehab has to be good. And if all 3 are good, then it works out. It's kind of like the snap, the hold, and the kick. That's my analogy. So you got to have the snap, the hold, and the kick. Any one of those that doesn't go right, you're not making the field goal. You're not making a good recovery. It's not the best case scenario. Right now, it seems like the snap or the injury itself is okay. We hope that the hold will be okay, the surgery, and then the recovery is actually the kick. And hopefully all will go well and he will return. But, it remains to be seen. And what we do at Sports Injury Central, different than anywhere else, is we don't do injury reporting. We do injury analysis. I love all the reporters of the world, from Schefter to Rappaport and all the big guys, but they're reporting what the team says, not in Philadelphia. But the other big news today is Matthew Stafford was a day-to-day, then became week-to-week, and then was going to practice today, and now isn't practicing today. There's a lot of, and I don't dislike Sean McVay, it's a common thing in the NFL, what we call coach speak, right? Code word. And coach speak is he could be ready week 1. Yes, we all hope he's ready week 1, but that's coach speak. What's the reality? It remains to be seen. Matthew Stafford, we've given best and worst case scenarios based on his back. Phillip Rivers played through a season, but Tony Romo's season ended with a back surgery. It remains to be seen. It's not day-to-day for Matthew Stafford. Same thing with this whole injury here with Landon Dickerson. We try and look at what we know rather than what is reported as, Lane Johnson's emotional. Look, it's his friend. I hope he's emotional, right? You're all a band of brothers there. So we try and do the analysis as news comes out. Right now, we're trending towards better for Landon Dickerson, and we're happy about it.
You bring a spectacular point up, and I wonder if you can broach this here, because you're right. If anybody doesn't know that this hasn't been leaked out by somebody affiliated with the Philadelphia Eagles because they want this out there like that, when do you look at it like this? The best interest and the best case scenario, that's the Eagles talking. That's not really, and like you said, no disrespect to Rappaport or Adam Schefter, but, I've always thought, Dr. Chao, that there's some type of conflict of interest when you have that. I mean, the guy works for the team. The doctors work for the team. The PR is going to get that story out. That's why you're always
look. I work for the team on the other side. I will say this look, I am not accusing the Eagles of doing anything nefarious. It's what all coaches do. I gave a Rams example. There's plenty of examples. And I will say this, it's not the doctors misleading. The doctors don't talk to the media. HIPAA. The doctors, it's the interpretation of the PR or the GM or the coach or the agent in terms of what they want out there. And what has surprised me about what I've done is there have been times when I've met up with a player and they'll go and I'll say, yeah, I'm so-and-so, and I'll introduce myself at a Super Bowl or a thing where I don't really know the player already. And I'll say, I'm so-and-so. And then I remember one time the Chiefs right tackle said to me, yeah, I know who you are. I said, I talked to your brother, Jeff Schwartz. He goes, yeah, I know who you are. I said, oh, are you mad at me because I've been saying that about your knee, that it's not right with the MCL? He goes, no, I'm actually glad, because the media in Kansas City was saying he's almost ready. It's any day now. And after about a month, they're saying, why, Mitchell Schwartz, are you taking your time? Shouldn't you be ready? The reality was it was a significant MCL that was going to be 6 weeks. Yet the way the reports are spun for the team's advantage, Mitchell Schwartz told me, made him look bad, right? And he's like, I can't say anything against the team, but you're telling things out there. He actually rather enjoyed it. And that's been a pleasant surprise about what I've been doing.
Let me go around the league a little bit here, and I want to ask you about Cam Jurgens. Oh, wait, before I do that, let me ask you about the risk that Landon Dickerson has here with this. I mean, I played when I had my trim, they put me in a Lenox Hill, and I said, I'm not wearing that thing. But then they taped me up, because the Lenox Hill back in those days, those things were like carburetors. I mean, they were really heavy, those old Lenox Hills, and I had it fitted for me. But then Dr. Diaco and those guys, they said, we'll wrap it for you. And I was able to play the rest of the year like that. Is there any kind of damage, or is that something down the road type of damage when it comes to arthritis? and what have you when you get to that point.
The damage is down the road when it comes to arthritis. And look, we at Sports Injury Central, we talked to Landon Dickerson a little bit, about the Cam Jurgens injury and his issues at this most recent Super Bowl. Obviously, players play coy with injuries. He's a tough guy, but he's had his history with knee issues. He came into the league with the left knee ACL, I believe. I think historically he has a right knee previous ACL injury from even before the NFL, well before. And so you have to give him, he's a human being. He's got a family. He needs to do what's right for him and his knees. And no one can blame him to be a little careful to make sure his knee's going to be right, especially given there's a tiny bit of cushion of the preseason, right? Let's give him a chance to go. And look, are the Eagles trying to be loaded for bear for week 1? Sure, they'd rather have him, but they're trying to load up for another Super Bowl. So as long as Landon Dickerson is back for the majority of the year, don't be surprised if in a joint effort, the player and the team slow plays it a little bit to make sure that he's going to be good to go for the long haul, and no one's going to be upset about that.
Yeah, you're looking for the long play here, not really the short play here with something like this. I want to ask you about Cam Jurgens, who had a back surgery this offseason here. And, man, those things are always tricky. I mean, he hasn't really participated in a lot of the offseason here and in the exhibition season. Obviously, he's not doing really anything. They've kind of got him on a pitch count. How concerned would you be if you're the Eagles on that? Because back injuries, we're talking about serious stuff here when you're talking about like sciatic nerve stuff. You're talking about, stuff that could really be a factor, especially for a center.
No question. And in the offensive line, you need a lot of core strength, right? In the trenches where you were, it's all about core strength and what you can do. Anecdotally, remember that J.J. Watt in his final days had a back surgery, returned way earlier than he thought he would from a preseason back surgery and re-injured it and required a second surgery. And that's going to be the case with Cam Jurgens. But I don't think we make as much about this. We touched on the Super Bowl. Cam Jurgens deserves a lot of credit for playing through a back injury, a disc injury that needed surgery. He should have shut his season down if he was doing what's best for him. Instead, he laid it out on the line and played through a disc injury, and nerve pain, if anyone's ever had it, is debilitating. And then he had the surgery after the Super Bowl. So props out to him. To me, if I'm on the Eagles, give that man as much time as he needs to get back this season. Don't worry about him. He's proven himself as a gamer when the team needs him. Give him the time that he needs to get right.
Doc, when you're talking to players and you're talking to Charger guys, or you're talking to any player right now that you deal with, how do you protect the player from himself? I mean, how do you do this? Because listen, being a normal orthopedic guy for a dude that walks the streets and being a pro orthopedic guy, there's two different folks there you're dealing with. How do you protect the player from himself?
Well, first of all, by being a player advocate and giving them all of the information, risk, benefits, complications, to make an informed decision. The number one question I get asked is, how did the team force you and what was the conflict? I look at it, there's no conflict. My responsibility is to the players. I literally told the team this. Look, if you're at a bank, you take care of the assets. What are the assets of a company or a bank? It's the money. What are the assets of the NFL team? It's the players. So take care of the players in the right way. I very rarely, it's always been what you say, players pushing me to return to play. Phillip Rivers famously played through a torn ACL in his one and only AFC Championship game 6 days after a knee scope. And he was the one driving it in the locker room that day on that playoff game. He wanted to return that game. I said, you couldn't. And I literally had to have the assistant athletic trainer pretend to give him a snap and prove to Phillip he couldn't get under center before he agreed to stay out of that game. And then on the bus ride and on the plane ride, I'm playing next week because we had beaten the Colts. And I said, well, if you're playing, let's get the MRI. Let's formulate a plan. No, I'm playing, doctor. I made him sleep on the decision Sunday night to have surgery Monday morning before playing the next week. And then we talked about it Monday morning. Coach Norv Turner, who I just saw at Canton with the Antonio Gates, that was a great time there.
Oh,
It was great, and you know, Antonio was great. He's such a nice guy, and gave a nice shout out, the whole deal. But whatever. The bottom line is Norv Turner is the one who said to Philip in that meeting that I was in, Philip, take care of your knee. Billy Volek will do this. We'll be okay. Philip Rivers is the one who said, no, 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 I'm pushing this and I'm coming back. And you know that, Dan, that's the norm. I get it as times change and guaranteed contracts come more and more into play. Things may slowly shift, but in my time, it's always been players pushing the envelope rather than the team.
Reoccurring hamstring injuries, A.J. Brown, seemingly these are coming a little bit more and more as you're getting older. When it becomes, and you're starting to see this, a year ago he had it throughout this entire offseason. When you start to see reoccurring hamstring injuries, what is that telling you? You know, he's in phenomenal shape. He's a great player. They're siding on the side of protecting the player. But when you start to see that, where you're starting to see reoccurring stuff, what's that telling you? Is that a telltale sign of something, or is that just its circumstances?
Well, it depends. Obviously, it depends on which hamstring, where in the hamstring, which hamstring muscle, and is it the same area or different areas? And is there an underlying problem of tightness, et cetera? You know, no one wants to have a hamstring injury, but if you're going to have a hamstring injury, the absolute best time to have it is early preseason, training camp, when you have a 6-week window to go. The worst time to have it is, you know, as is when the season's already been in play. Look, A.J. Brown's he's a phenomenal receiver, done a great job. I still have more chronic worry about his knee. He's going to get vet rest there. And, you know, there's always the good and the bad. The bad, you can say, look, he's got some knee issues. He's this, he's that. But let me tell you, without the knee issues, the Eagles wouldn't have gotten him. Why do you think Tennessee traded him, right? I mean, they were willing to part with him. It's because they knew about the knee issue. So you got to take the good with the bad. And right now, I'll take A.J. Brown all day long.
How about this one here? Boy, I'll tell you, I love talking and catching up with you again. You're such a great friend. Dr. Chao, I love we're being able to do this again here. Let me ask you something about Saquon Barkley. Injured 3 of the last 6 years when he was in New York. Pretty good knee injuries, too. Last year, he had over 460 carries a year ago, and he was just a workhorse. As you're getting older, with a guy who's had some pretty good knee injuries, what would be your advice as a team doctor to the coaches? I mean, do you put him on a pitch count? Do you worry about that? Because, again, 3 knee injuries in 6 years. How do you legislate that? And moving forward, he's such a catalyst. You could have made the argument he was the MVP of the league a year ago by the way he played. But as a team doctor, how do you treat him as you're going along? And now we're coming up to another year where he may have to carry the ball 400 times.
Look, Saquon's been great, right? It's been great for the Eagles. And you're right. I mean, it's a quarterback-driven league. Otherwise, he would have gotten the MVP. And,
That's right.
And the worry this year is as much about the interior of the Eagles' offensive line between Juergens and Dickerson and a new right guard, as you know. And quite honestly, Saquon's probably one of the very few, basically 3 down backs, right? He's going to get a lot of touches and mileages and carries, and he's been great. But yes, you know, the more you drive a car, the more likely you're going to get in an accident, right? And it's just bad luck and touches and so forth. So hopefully it won't be the case for Saquon. But one of the things that I always say, yes, I worked in the league, I'm a team doctor, but look, you stay in your lane. Look, they don't often ask you what. I'll tell you a funny story only because Gates just got in the Hall of Fame. I remember one time in Gates' career, they said, we really need him. We really need him this week. How about 10 to 12 red zone plays? And the athletic trainer and I said, okay, here you go. Here we go. And then at the end of the first quarter, I said, I think he's already hit his limit. At halftime, he doubled his limit. And we both looked at each other and chuckled. The analogy I'll give you is, once you give a player the helmet or once you give the coach the okay to play a guy, even if you say snap count, it's like giving your teenager the keys to the car. You may say curfew's at 11. What time they come home is a different story, right?
I love it here. Let me ask you a couple of questions if you got some time here about some of the players in the league here. Slater, you know, the Chargers, they lose their really top flight offensive tackle. I mean, what a catastrophic thing to have that happen in the preseason here, though. his chances of returning next year will be what when you have that kind of injury?
Well, it's a major injury. It's a catastrophic injury, but the good news is I do fully expect him to return. And the only good news about having this in this freak first preseason game, he's got the longest runway possible to return for next season. And the other thing is it's his left knee, outer knee. No, he was right knee maybe. But in any case, we saw it on video and we immediately said, unfortunately, it looks like patella tendon rupture. It's not the end of the world. In the AFC West, Simmons, the highly ranked left tackle from Ohio State, had a patella tendon rupture in college. And we said during the draft, he can be really very, very good because it wasn't his inside right knee, the power leg to kick out. It was his left knee. He's got a good runway. And I think he's the opening day starter for the Chiefs. And they're shoring up a much needed help on that left side for the Chiefs in the division. So with that being said, left tackle Rashawn Slater, it is not the end. It's just the end of 2025.
You mentioned Matthew Stafford's back. I mean, obviously the Rams are one of the favorites to knock off the Eagles this year in the NFC, and there's no chance for that football team without him being upright. I mean, he's an older guy. I mean, as a team doctor, how do you legislate that right there, knowing full well that they're not going anywhere without him? And it's a back, which could be rehabilitating throughout the season. How do you look at that injury with the Rams?
Well, the best thing you probably can do for Matthew Stafford is out of the doctor's hands. It's in the GM's hands to get him a really good offensive line. That's number one. But look, I'd rather have Matthew Stafford than not. The only guy I can compare, and I'm not just trying to compare it to my guys, but I think it's a good comparison to Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers had that longevity streak. Matthew Stafford is on a similar streak. Matthew Stafford's played through broken this and that. But we said early on when we love Sean McVay, but there's a lot of coach speak coming out there day to day. I'm like, day to day, like I'd rather have, and I said this on my podcast, I'd rather have a transverse process fracture that can be good in 2 or 3 weeks than this nebulous came out of nowhere back injury, which speaks more towards herniated disc. And that's what it seems it is now with the epidural steroid injections. Those are tricky. Once again, best case scenario, Phillip Rivers played through a whole season with one, getting epidurals. Worst case scenario, it ended Tony Romo's season late in his career once with surgery. Where is Matthew Stafford going to fall? It remains to be seen. And remember, he had some big time neck issues 2 years back too. And look, let's hope he comes back and let's keep him from getting hit and ball out quick and all of that good stuff.
2 last ones here for you. Nico Dean's injury. They're not very optimistic he's coming back from this. And when you have injuries like Nico Dean has had, I mean, do you worry about him again? He came to the Eagles injured from Georgia. And now you're seeing him being a guy that's been repetitive when it comes to these injuries. What are you expecting on his return? Do you think that he'll be any kind of factor this year for them when it comes to Nico Dean's type of injury?
Well, first of all, when you talk about an ACL tear, that's like saying you got rear-ended in a car crash. What actually was damaged is the question. We know the ACL was damaged, but what associated damage? Meniscus, articular cartilage, and that we don't know. But I can tell you that it is a hard recovery, certainly for the first half of the season for Nico Dean. Hopefully he can be back and closer to himself for the second half of the season. But look, you can say all you want. He was injured at Georgia, this, that, the other. But I think your GM, Howie Roseman, has had a pretty good track record of drafting those Georgia and SEC kids, and they've worked out fine for the most part. So even if this one doesn't work out fully fine, I think you're way ahead of the game in terms of playing the field, playing the odds and so forth. I think he'll be back. You just can't expect a lot from him early on this season.
Final question for you. I had a conversation with John Lynch about the new fields and the new turf. And he and I are under the agreement that, I get the old turf, Doc. You and I know that turf was terrible. The upgrades that they have with the little beads and all that, your foot gets a little more leeway to slide. But boy, I'll tell you, I see a lot more lower extremity injuries early on in the year. Now, is that from a lack of practicing the two-a-days and getting your body ready? for the upcoming season, or do you attribute that a little bit to the turf that we're seeing now that the NFL has gone to? Or maybe it's both. I don't know. How do you look at the new turf? Has it really been a factor?
First of all, there's no question the quote new turf is way better than the old turf. Okay.
Absolutely.
But there's also no question that in general, grass is better than the new turf. Okay. In general. Remember, there's all sorts of different types of new turf, and there's all sorts of different types of grass. And to me, it's about evenness and stickiness of the field and what give the field has. But evenness is important too. If you remember back in Houston, Reliance Stadium, when it first opened, it was grass and they were carting in pallets, but the pallets of grass had seams, and Wes Welker tore his ACL on a seam on the grass. So it's not just about the surface. In general, yes, grass is better than turf, but one of the reasons we see more of these lower extremity injuries and foot and ankle injuries and whatever is, think about it, Dan. My foot, ankle, Achilles, and ACL aren't really any bigger than any of the people in the NFL. And as players get bigger, faster, stronger, they're on the same size suspension. If, NASCAR, IndyCar was on the suspension like my car, there'd be a lot of breakdowns too when you put all that horsepower on it and all the weight on it. So I think that plays a factor in it too, in general. So it's a multifactorial answer. Look, if players want all grass fields, it's possible, but it comes at a cost. It's something that can be collectively bargained and so forth. But one thing you can't do is, once the stadium, MetLife Stadium's been built, you can't retrofit it for a sliding grass field or turf. You got to do that on the front end. And owners, it's not that they don't want to take care of guys and what have you. It's when you're building a stadium, you can't do Taylor Swift concerts if it's grass, right? You can't put high school football games on there, college games on there. You can't do other events on there if it's grass, or it's a lot harder to. So it's an economic decision in the big picture. And if the league wants to go to all grass, you got to do it on the front end. And I don't want to hear about, oh, well, for the soccer players, they're putting on new grass. Okay. Yes. Short term, low usage, and it's average weight 150-pound guys, not 350-pound monsters, right? With their cleats digging in and tearing up. It's a different type of grass, a different field that they install for the World Cup type things, or when the European soccer clubs come into town.
I have to sneak this in on you. What did you feel about Gates going in, and how'd that make you feel about, he's the first player never to have played college, elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He probably didn't even know what to expect when he showed up as an NFL guy, when it came to the type of pain that he was going to have to go through. I know he was at Kent State. He played basketball. But how'd that make you feel when one of your guys went in?
Super proud, super glad to be there. It's the third time I've been there, and it's always been for a guy. The one for our guy Junior was very sad because he had passed away. Very happy when LT went in. This Gates one was special, not because of the shout out and thank you, but like, I've been through a long time with Antonio Gates, and I really look at him as a friend and so forth. And since you're about good stories and having some fun, I'll tell you my good story that I actually have told before, but I got confirmed in Canton. When Gates was a rookie, was first-year player and, basketball player, Kent State Elite Eight, he was playing. He made our roster, but he was a couple catches a game, 2-3 catches a game. Then he had a breakout game with 11 catches and over 100 yards at home. And let me tell you, I joked that I had a very small piece of it. There was a national anthem singer that sang the national anthem and killed it. And I said to Gates, "Did you see that national anthem singer?" He's like, "Yeah, she did great. She was amazing." I said, No. Look at her jersey. That's not 55. That's not 37, Rodney Harrison. That's 85. And he looked and he went, "Oh, wow." And he had a great game. And the truth of the matter is that the young lady had long blonde hair covering the nameplate. And that was Tim Dwight's 85 jersey from last year, not Gates' 85 from this year. And I asked a couple of vets on the sideline. I said, "Should I tell him that?" And I remember Vaughn Parker, our right tackle, telling me, "Nah, the more you can do." And then he had a nice breakout good. we retold that story at Canton after he got in, and he got a good laugh, and he did remember the scenario. So we can have some fun while we're working there too.
Tell folks how they can find you, and tell folks what you're doing. And God, I so hope we can do this again. I just love catching up with you, my friend. I mean, tell the folks how they can find you.
Well, Twitter's at ProFootballDoc, but at Six Score or www.sicscore.com. Sports Injury Central. We cover everything, believe it or not, from WNBA injuries to NFL, and even the NASCAR racer who broke his collarbone. We did that in real time. We do injury analysis. Are we perfect? No, because we're analyzing without looking at x-rays or MRI, but we try and tell you what it means ahead of time. We've shown that we're 95% accurate, and we're having fun with it. Billy Walters endorses us. You know who Billy Walters is, the greatest NFL gambler of all time. And last month we had Bill Belichick on the podcast, and he endorsed us. So I guess we're pretty diverse. Bill Belichick and Billy Walters, kind of thing. That's covering a lot of the spectrum, and we have fun. Like I said, we're the only place that does true injury analysis as opposed to reporting. We don't have sources. I know doctors from around the league and the athletic trainers, but if I called them up and asked them what's happening with Landon Dickerson, the Eagles guy, I know the Eagles doctor really, really well. He would hang up on me. He would say, "No, I can't tell you, dude. I mean, it's HIPAA, right?" And so this is why we do it on analysis. And, I worked on the other side, so I know a little bit how it works. And, when the ammonia popper controversy came up and it was banned, we can do a podcast. So you can't ban that. That's got to be collectively bargained. The only thing is, the league is saying we're not going to supply it because we don't want liability. Yes, but like in the old days, right? There were piles of Advil that you could just grab.
Oh, absolutely.
But they stopped that. But you can always go to the drugstore and bring your own Advil. The league can't stop you from doing that. But they just stopped supplying the big bowl of Advil.
Do you know what I told people on the smelling salts? I go like this. I go, yeah, because you know what they were doing? Because when you got a stinger, a small concussion, that's what we called them back in the day. You're doing that to clear your head so you can get back out there, what the league doesn't want to do. And, hey, Doc, I know they don't want to be in a courtroom. They don't want to deal with that CTE. So they told you this, bring your own bottle, basically, right? Bring your own.
Yeah, but I'm not blaming the league and saying, look, if the league could outlaw it, they probably would have, but they're not able to because of the CBA. And here's what the league's worried about. You know this. Nothing against them, but the strength and conditioning guys have it in their pocket and they're handing it out. There's no athletic trainer or doctor that would give a guy smelling salts if they thought they had a head injury. Nobody. Right. But maybe they're grabbing it from the cabinet or grabbing it from a non-athletic trainer. That's what they're trying to prevent. And I get that from their perspective. But, George Kittle is still going to be able to do his poppers when he wants to. And look, I know one coach used to be a player that he does it on the sideline, but it's just part of ingrained culture. I'm not saying good or bad. It's just players want to do it. And as long as you're not messing with concussions and doing it to treat guys that got their bell rung, I mean, it is what it is.
We got to go out and have a beer again. Absolutely great. We have to do this and catch up again. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks,
you were spectacular. And make sure, guys, that you check out the Pro Football Doc. Make sure you check out anytime there's a situation when it comes to an injury. He will give you a bird's eye view of what that's going on and how he's looking at it from up about 30,000 feet there, right? Because we don't want to put you in there because you're not looking at it, right? But he's giving you the best analysis that you could possibly get. Doc, thank you so much for doing this. I so appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
You got it. Dr. David Chao, absolutely a wonderful guy. We appreciate him so much doing this. That's great stuff, man. So, Bob Lang put that out. Huh. Bob Lang put that out. Yes. That came from the Eagles. That's a PR because a doctor's not putting that out. He can't.